Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you with me here today to talk about Microsoft Copilot. We have so much key information that's going to help you be successful on this journey towards AI with our customers. And first, I have an important person to share with you his perspective. TJ, welcome.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're excited to be here. Share with us your perspective on where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I really want to thank everyone for being on this journey with us. We're at a pivotal moment as we think about the future of work. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start to bring customers along with us and embrace a whole new way of working, a way that is more human, more natural working with our tools and our solutions. It's also a 190 million seat opportunity, and it's one that we get to explore together. Most importantly, we see this as being a deep partnership across our organizations. Now, actually, before I hand this back to Caruana, I want to spend a little bit of time showing how I use Copilot myself. I think everybody knows that right now Microsoft is going through our own annual review process, and I use Copilot to help me write my annual reviews. I'll jump into my computer right now. As you can see, I'm going to give an annual review for Jane Doe, my social media manager. Now, in practice, I don't actually have a person on my team named Jane Doe, and I'm not responsible for social media. But this is a good way to see where the product starts and where it stops, where my job continues to be really important as we go through this. So here you can see I've written up a brief summary, draft an annual review for Jane Doe, a social media manager based on the bullets below. And I have about 10 or 15 bullets based on her actual performance. I'm going to copy this out of my OneNote. And I'm going to paste this over into Copilot. I'm going to ask Copilot to go ahead and get started on this for me. Now, what Copilot's going to do is it's going to gather up this information. It's going to organize it. And you also see from my prompt that I ask it to organize it in the 3 categories that Microsoft expects of its people. Are you achieving outcomes? Are you contributing to the success of others? And are you leveraging the work of others? It's going to gather this information up, and it's going to give me something that's about 80% of the way there. That's what I need. That's enough. And there we are. So you can see it's walking me through exactly what I asked for. It's talking through what Jane did well. It's talking about where some of her gaps are. It's including some of the quotes that I asked along the way. It even included something she can do to improve. Now, actually, I'm going to ask it to rewrite the tone a little bit. Let's be a little more optimistic. She's done a pretty good job. I want her to work on her leadership skills. I'm going to ask it to regenerate along those lines. This will give me the tighter feedback that I want. It'll give me a place that I can continue to build on. And as it wraps up right now, I can go in and I can start to edit. I'm spending less time on the form. I'm spending more time on the quality. I'm spending less time on the structure around it and more time on what it actually means. I did this back in April as well. We do these twice a year. Doing these write-ups used to take me 2 hours per person. Back in April, it only took me about 30 minutes for each person. And even more importantly, they said we had the best conversations we've ever had. I focused on the person, not the tools, not the ritual around it. And that's the real value of Copilot. It saves me an incredible amount of time, but it helps me focus on what really matters, connecting to my people. And that's what I'm excited about as we go forward with this. And that's just one example, Caruana, of some of the things that we're doing internally.
Thank you, TJ. That's such important information from that business user perspective. What TJ's talking about is really having that personal aha moment when you really begin to understand from your own lived experience what Copilot for Microsoft 365 can do for you. This is exactly what we need to drive throughout our customer base, those 190 million seats that TJ talked about, and so many more beyond that. So we've got a lot of resources that will help you with that. Now, of course, with each customer engagement, we hope that you're doing the Art of the Possible workshop. That workshop really gathers you so much information about the customer, their industry, their scenarios, their end users, and their pain points. And that information is critical to bring into the adoption journey that they have. But we've published so much great content for you. Our Copilot Readiness Hub is now available, and it's at adoption.microsoft.com/Copilot. That is really your one-stop shop for customer-facing information that you can also use to demonstrate to your customer the investment Microsoft is doing in driving user satisfaction. It is something that I want to call out, is that we're really talking about user satisfaction more than adoption, more than counts and amounts. Are people getting the value from Copilot and Microsoft 365 that we're all envisioning? The site is organized by role, but there's a lot of great information in there. So let me hop over right now and do a little demonstration for you of what the site is like. So here at the top, we always have new information and our core calls to action, preparing for Copilot, learning how Copilot works, and of course, joining the public Copilot community. This is a space that's for customers to come and ask their questions, engage with other people along the Copilot journey. We have all of the information that is curated across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So here in the Copilot Hub, we have content from Microsoft Learn, we have product documentation, we have connections to the mechanics videos and all sorts of downloadable content. So really, we're trying to bring all this together for you instead of giving you that long list of links that we are so famous for doing. Now, if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see the resources by role. You'll see this role selector. It starts here with the overview, and that's where a good deal of the generic information is, including new pages like our Copilot for Work page, which is really targeted towards the C-suite. They're having conversations at a higher level about Copilot in an organization. We have business user content that's specifically for those people, those humans who are going to be using this, and especially folks who are leaders in an organization or just of a team, right? Everyone is a business user. How do we think of this when we're not technologists? We have content that's specifically for leaders. Once you move from being a business user into a team lead or department lead, you have new considerations. We have content for that. And then, of course, now we get into some of the specialty roles: adoption manager, IT professional, and developer. Now, I'm going to go back and focus a little bit on the adoption manager space because this is where we have some of that new content that I was referring to. Now, we've broken it out in an easy format for customers to understand, but from a partner perspective, I'd suggest that you go ahead and download the full adoption kit. This has all of the resources, the workbook, the standalone modules, and additional content that you're going to need. Of course, what you can do is you can customize that content, right? You can customize it in your own organization. So for instance, you can download our resources, they're PowerPoint slides, you can rebrand them yourself, integrate them in to the additional value that you bring to that customer, and then you don't have to start from scratch. Don't start from scratch. That is the theme, of course, of adoption at Microsoft.com. Now let's hop back also. I do want to call out in the IT professional area, we have, again, collated all the information about preparation, technical readiness, getting started, so people can find it in an easy area. Now, this is a customer-facing site, and so what will happen is you'll go to the Partner Center or the Modern Work page for partner-specific content, offer information, things of that nature, but this is about the product itself. Now, I want to highlight a couple of things about the content as well. So our adoption workbook is broken down into 3 sections. We have an overview summary of the process by which you should go through to drive real user satisfaction. We have an embedded rapid adoption guide that allows you to really focus on getting people into the product as quickly as possible. And then we have a set of planning worksheets. Now, those planning worksheets you can do directly with the customer, or as I mentioned, you can rebrand them for yourself and document the plan for adoption. Again, adoption is a process, not a moment in time, and so you want to help people understand that. Now, as I mentioned, we have some new methods for adoption that are more appropriate for the Copilot era. Of course, all of the ACM, adoption change management practitioners out there are familiar with the ADKAR model or the Microsoft 365 adoption framework. These things have been around for a long time, but we have to evolve and innovate in this area just like we are in the product. We've designed the rapid adoption method to really focus on the in-product experience. Let the product itself do the heavy lifting. Let it take people to that aha moment where they begin to have that lived experience of what matters for them about Copilot and Microsoft 365 and all of their other favorite applications. And so the technical readiness workstream moves along, but if you take people through this rapid adoption method, you'll be leveraging Microsoft Copilot Lab. And the Copilot Lab is that embedded prompt guidance that not only shows you a proper structure for a prompt, but also gives you suggestions just for you when that indexing is complete. The rapid adoption method can be embedded in with the professional adoption motion that you may be delivering, or it can stand alone. Another thing I really wanted to focus on is that as we think about user satisfaction, we have to hone in on the user journey differently. Oftentimes, we haven't really paid as much attention as we should to the person's emotional and psychological state as they're learning something new. Especially in the age of AI, there's fear, anxiety, trepidation, a lack of certainty. We have to overcome these things as we build and rebuild trust with our customers. We want to build on the fact that we have a trusted experience in the Copilot set of experiences, but also we have to overcome the fact that most people come to technology projects with a little bit of cynicism because technology, they may feel like it's let them down in the past. If you look here on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see that the business users are coming in with those uncertainties, right? You want to identify what is the question that the person is asking as they are beginning to go through the experience. And then we have micro behaviors, micro engagements that we can do that will change the outcome of that person's feeling about the experience they're about to have with Microsoft 365 Copilot. What we want is to get people to that aha moment because that unleashes their curiosity, their creativity. They start to have inspiration about how the product can actually work for them. And then they continue learning and thinking about how can this help my team? How can this help the customers that I'm engaging with? We want to take all people all the way through into becoming fans. It's not enough that they just begin to use Copilot experiences. They need to love them. And that is really the goal. So this journey is something that you'll be seeing more about. The micro engagements, being able to use the think, act, feel model, being able to think about people holistically from a true people first perspective as we take them through this journey. Of course, we also have our adoption planning checklist that's included in the full kit. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can edit and again, brand the way that you like, as well as the user experience strategy template. I highly recommend that you start to have engagements with your customers about what is the user experience strategy for your organization. And you might want to think about it for your own. I can't tell you how many customers don't have this, and it is the ground truth. It is the North Star of the principles and goals that you have for business users in your environment, whether they're frontline workers, information workers, or executives, or beyond. We've included an example of a user experience strategy in the full adoption kit, but here's a pro tip. Use Copilot to start to create one. You can have our template be a reference document for Copilot to begin to build this for yourself. And it's a great way for people to understand how to really engage with content creation and Copilot for Microsoft 365. The other differentiator that's important is the center of excellence. So you might call this a community of practice. Our customers can call it whatever they want. But what's important is that you have a center of gravity because the feedback cycles we have in these Copilot experiences are much more rapid than we've seen in other technology implementations. And so it's important that people have a place to go, to interact with each other, to ask questions, where your champions can live and do peer training, where you can continue to roll out new inspiration around the types of prompts people are using, etc. So whether you call it a center of excellence as we do, or a community of practice, or something else, we've got guidance built into the kit of what content and what experiences should be included in that center of excellence. And now I'm extremely happy to remind everyone about the Ignite announcement where we talked about the Microsoft Copilot Flight Crew. All of you can be members of the Flight Crew, and you can earn badges and insignia by completing Microsoft Learn courses, contributing to the community. This is both a partner and customer-facing program that represents the evolution of our champions. We love our champions, and they are still so important to us. And we want to also identify those folks who are having Copilot and generative AI experiences be a real part of what they're doing. So stay tuned for more about how you too can earn your badge, even maybe watching this webinar, and become a part of the Copilot Flight Crew. At the end of the day, what's really important is your engagement with us, but also your technical understanding. To build trust and to really live those responsible AI experiences, we need to make sure that customers understand the way Copilot works And that's why I have Jeremy here with me today. Jeremy, I'm so excited to have you go through some more of the technical details that people have been asking questions about. Why don't you tell us what you're going to talk about today?
Yeah, it's such an important conversation. Now is really the time. We've got 3 different things that we're going to want to do as an administrator, somebody helping an organization adopt the service. There's really getting the information protection and all the house in order in terms of things like search, because at the end of the day, we're using retrieval augmented generation. We need to be able to find good data to create good outputs effectively through the large language models. Then the second part is really like configuring the service, making sure that you have the right things in place. If that's plugins, if that's graph connectors for extensibility, all the configurations, using web content, for example, to work with retrieval augmented generation to really keep everything up to date. And then there's actually getting the service running itself. So then there's some prerequisites that you'll need to figure out in terms of making sure people on the newest versions of Office, for example, and getting everything kind of squared away there so that you've got all the bits and all the binaries to start using the experiences.
Absolutely. And, I'm a nerd at heart. So everything you said, I'm really excited about right now. So why don't you just dive in and let us learn from you?
Okay. So like I said, it's all really hinging upon information readiness. Now, what this means is getting to a state of just enough access. And what does that mean? Well, not everyone knows. You probably know because you're a partner, you're doing these type of deployments all the time, but you can have different access based on the user, even on the same team. So let me show you a quick example of how that works. In terms of just access differentiation and then making sure that people have the right level of access to get their job done, but that they're not over provisioned. So I'm going to walk through an example here of 2 different users. They happen to be on the same team. One is called Mario and one is Violet. So first off, we're going to see that Mario, he's a VP. He's actually reporting to Violet. As you can see here, they're on the same team. They're working on the same projects. In fact, Project Falcon, you can see they're both contributing to the same goals and the same deliverables. Now, Violet actually has access to things like purchase orders, contracts, other sensitive information that Mario doesn't have access to. So you can see that it's got a highly confidential label. That means that she'll be able to access that information through search and be able to use it and kind of use the document as you'd expect. So if she goes into a search experience, either through SharePoint or Microsoft365.com, you'll see that when she has a search, there's her file. She'll be able to find it, and she can navigate to it as well, and everything is there ready for her. If she goes into the agreements folder, there's that file. Now, if we flip over to Mario's view, even though he's on the same team, he reports to Violet. If he does a search for the same document, you'll see he can't find it. He sees some things that are kind of related, but not exactly that document. So in that case, the sensitive information is only in the hands of the person that needs it. And when he does a search, there's some related docs, but nothing there in terms of sensitive information that he shouldn't be able to access. Even if he knows the location of the precise folder, because they're on the same project, you'll see Mario doesn't see that file. And that's really the key in terms of differentiating access to what people can and should be able to use to get their jobs done. Now, the thing with Copilot is it never grants additional permission to any files. It's always going to be in the user context. So when Mario tries to actually look for that using a Copilot prompt, it's not going to find that information either, because again, even though Copilot's very powerful, it doesn't have any more permissions than you do as the user. However, when Violet goes to use that and tries to call up the file as part of her prompt, you'll see that she can see that file and access the file and generate content based on the contents of the document that we saw before. And the nice thing is, if it creates anything with sensitive information, rules like DLP, for example, will pick that up and automatically label that file if you've got automatic labeling policies in place. So basically, Copilot acts like the user would be if they pasted in content or if they wrote the content manually. All the same rules apply. Everything's consistent. So what this means in terms of tool recommendations, I'm going to go through that. But first, I know a lot of you have probably seen some of the security stories and kind of data protection that we can apply that really spans everything. It's something that you should do whether you're deploying Copilot or not. But there are some updates here. So first, we've actually built in new sensitivity label capabilities with Copilot. If you've been using it through the early access program, for example, now we'll display those sensitivity labels if you're using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, right in the context of using Copilot. The other thing that's important here is label inheritance. So if you're working on a document that has a confidential label and you create something from that document, it will inherit that label as well in the generated content. And now a lot of people ask us about encryption. So for example, if you're working with encrypted content, you need exact or extract usage rights or permissions to be able to view that content and work with the content. And then finally, from an audit perspective and retention and e-discovery, All of that's been configured and is working as well, so that those prompts, they're basically stored as messages. You'll be able to audit all of that work as you would audit anything else in Microsoft 365. So all the controls are there, whether you want to protect your files and documents, make sure that the confidentiality and those labels are applied automatically to what you're working with, and then all the audit capabilities and e-discovery are there as well. So one thing that you can do, though, as partners getting customers ready for Copilot is make sure that, again, their information and kind of the right sizing of access is in place so that no one's over-permissioned. So that kind of starts in SharePoint, I think, for a lot of that retrieval, because that's what you saw in search before. So what you're going to want to do is basically go through some site audits in terms of who has access to which sites, making sure that sites that shouldn't be over-permissioned are not over-permissioned, looking into site membership, those types of things. There are different tools and different approaches you can use. This is part of every single version of Microsoft 365, so there's nothing additional here in terms of tooling that you have to acquire to do this. It's just a matter of due diligence and going through the sites that have the most sensitive content in them, prioritizing those first and kind of working down the list. Now, another thing that you can do that's really powerful and kind of part of the story I was telling about from a labeling and sensitivity and retention and kind of all the auditing capabilities is using Microsoft Purview. Now, this is your one-stop shop where you can do all of the things around things like labels. So you've got all the different labels that you can apply to your files and make sure those, again, are inherited as part of things that you're going to generate based on original content. Labels then can also work together with classifiers. So one of the things, the naming of this, it says trainable classifiers. You don't need to train them. They actually work in box. So things like bank statements or patents or contract agreements, those are already built into the model. So it will automatically find that information. So for example, if Copilot generates a contract, it will label that automatically if you set up policies to do so. So those are things that you can put in place now as well. And then the policies are kind of predicated on the labels and also the classification of the document. So any policies that you have in place will then apply additional protections to those different files that are generated or being used as well. So those are all the things that you'll do in terms of preparing the information. Now, one nice thing with this is that with these policies and with the updates to Microsoft Purview is that you're doing this all in one place so that you can see here whether it's email or it's SharePoint or it's OneDrive content, Teams content, you just have to configure those policies in one place and it's blanketed over all the different content that you create. So it's a one-stop shop even as you create and build policies. Now, in terms of what you can do once you do detect, for example, that files are containing sensitive information, that's where you can actually use some automation as part of the policies there as well to block permissions, maybe change the sharing radius down to the originator of the file. And those are all configurations that you have here also. And you can also do things like folder inheritance for labels as well that will make sure that, for example, all HR files that are created in the HR sites are going to get the right labels applied to them automatically. Whether a human generates that or whether Copilot generates it or it's copy-paste, doesn't matter. Anything in that location will get labeled. So these are all great tactics that you can use in terms of getting to just enough access. Now, something that's pretty cool, I think, in terms of starting to automate some of the over-permissioning challenge is what we have around SharePoint Advanced Management. It's part of Syntex. Yes, it is an additional service that you need to acquire as part of that, but it's going to really make things a lot more automated in terms of identifying sites that have maybe over-permissioning configured. So what it will do is actually give you notifications in email like you just saw. And here we see a top secret site that's been shared externally, which is never a good thing. And so if I click into that, I can actually start doing site audit reviews and access reviews with the site owner. And I can restrict access for that site to just the partner team in this case that should have access to the site. So it's detecting over-permissioning for you and actually automating some of those remediation steps so it's just a few clicks to get everything back under control. So now that you've got everything in control in terms of information protection, we've also actually introduced some brand new experiences in terms of the admin side of things for Microsoft 365 and that admin center. So what you'll be able to do here is actually configure some of the core service settings. Let me walk through some of the initial controls, and this will change and get updated over time. There are more powerful settings coming into this, but to get started, right now we've got controls for configuring Bing Chat, so that you'll be able to look at Bing Chat. You can get to it from the Copilot left nav, by the way, in the Microsoft Admin Center. But you'll see all the different experiences that you can actually modify and configure for you. So Bing Chat, data security and compliance, plugins or graph connectors, public web content, and then Security Copilot. So within Bing Chat, you'll be able to configure things like the Bing Chat Enterprise and also the Bing Chat consumer experiences. And then from data security, that links you right to Microsoft Purview, so you can do all the things I mentioned earlier in terms of configuring things like data loss prevention policies, document classification, labels, etc. That can all play into how you deploy Microsoft 365 and in general, and also how you could deploy Copilot for Microsoft 365. So plugins is another area that's going to be something that you're going to want to look at in terms of how you talk to or get external information as part of retrieval for your prompts. So you can use both plugins and graph connectors. That's probably a whole other topic that we could spend another 10 or 15 minutes on. But this is another area where you've got complete control over who can access which plugins. You can control it by user, by group. And then public web content. Now, if you've ever used things like other LLMs, you know there's a knowledge cutoff date. Now, with public web content, you're not going to be just kind of restricted to say everything before September of 2021. It's going to pull recent content. So even like GPT-4 that doesn't have quite as aggressive as a cutoff date, it's going to pull everything for the last 6 months, for example, to give you up-to-date content as you start to generate new output. So Security Copilot is another thing. It's not related. You don't have to have it in order to deploy Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's another great tool that you can use to actually look through your security incidents. And the nice thing with Security Copilot is that there are going to be embedded experiences as part of things like Microsoft Entra, Microsoft Intune, and Microsoft Purview, and Microsoft Defender XDR that you can actually use Copilot in context of the work that you do every day. So those are the updates in terms of getting everything prepared and ready. Now let's look at technical prerequisites and setup. So there's a few things that you'll need to do to help your organizations adopt Copilot. And really the first thing is to make sure that they've got the right version of Microsoft 365. So Microsoft 365 different plans will be able to run Copilot. And the nice thing with that is once you have that in place, then those plans actually include the client apps. So what you're going to want to do there is you can use the update channel to current channel to get the latest features. And then as of December's update, you'll be able to use the monthly enterprise channel as well in terms of getting some of the capabilities, because you know there's a lag in terms of the monthly enterprise channel for Microsoft 365 apps. So once you've got that sorted, then you've got kind of the bits and binaries there in terms of the actual clients, the rich clients, and those are kind of the harder part of getting the work done because a lot of the web clients are easier to set up. But now you're kind of at the stage where you can actually look at getting people set up with the right licensing and the right access to Copilot for Microsoft 365. So we've actually created a wizard experience in the setup area of the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And just to walk through what that looks like, so you can see it here, you can click in, and it's going to kind of show you the impact and what it's going to actually provide the organization. When we get started, it's going to actually walk you through a nice wizard experience first to explain kind of what the different experiences are. So we see Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise that we probably would have taken care of in the last step. Things like Microsoft Entra ID, OneDrive, Outlook, Teams. And Microsoft Loop also has a Copilot experience. Semantic Index for Copilot, which by the way, you don't need to configure yourself, but there's some great content on mechanics that you can watch about how that works. Once you've got all that kind of squared away, then you can start applying licenses to the right users and groups. So you can do that right from here in the setup guide. And basically you can configure everything you need from a licensing perspective right here, whether that's the Microsoft 365 licenses or the Copilot licenses. Once you've done that, then it will actually generate an email for you that you can use to send to those users. It automatically populates that group or that team that you just selected, and you can even add more people to that just to make sure that everybody is informed of what's coming from a Microsoft 365 perspective and what they're going to be able to experience through Copilot. And then we're done. And so that basically gets us through the experience in terms of getting everything up and deployed. But there's always going to be more work to be done, because even though you're training users, as Caruana mentioned, making sure that they're adopting all the technologies, that work's never over. I come from a systems integrator background myself in IT, so I know that's one of the things where you can't always lead everyone to water on day one. It's going to be a longer journey. And I think that's where the stuff that you're working on and the kind of the adoption content really helps.
Absolutely. Adoption is a journey, not a moment in time, as we like to make sure everyone understands. But, I'm really impressed by everything that you just showed. And I hope everyone out there is understanding that TJ and Jerry and myself and all of the thousands of people who are working on this product are really here to help you be successful, right? We want to make sure that you are using this moment in time, as TJ mentioned, to expand your own practice. Think about the offers that you can put in market. Think about the way you can use this in your own organization, right? We know from prior projects like this that the technology that you use in your own organization, you have an easier time discussing with your customer because you're coming from that authentic personal experience. We want you to have that personal experience, have your own aha moment that you can then help customers understand. There's tremendous content that's available for you through the Partner Center, through the Modern Work page, but we have something special for you as well. We have a partner community, and the partner community is there so that you can bring your questions directly to us. A variety of people make sure that those questions get answered. We have monthly community calls. We want to make sure that we're really there for you on this journey because we appreciate the trust you put in us as an organization and the trust that you drive with our customers. The deep technical capabilities that we're launching mean that so much good work can happen across the Microsoft ecosystem, from the admin experience that has been shown, through the embedded applications that we know and love, all the way through the extensibility story. Our Microsoft AI positioning is really industry leading, and we know you can make a great opportunity with that. So with that, we want to make sure that you hop into the community, go and find the resources, visit adoption.microsoft.com/Copilot, but make sure that you have your technical readiness in order. Make sure you're also visiting Microsoft Learn. We have great content out there that you and your staff can take to be ready yourselves to take customers along this journey. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time today. TJ and Jeremy, I really appreciate you, absolutely, and we will see you again very soon.